Okay, so now moving away from the Charlotte Hornets and LiAngelo Ball and LaMelo Ball, my infatuation with that young and exciting team out in the East, we're going to move to a recent trade with my team, the Los Angeles Clippers. So the Los Angeles Clippers this past weekend made a trade sending Patrick Beverley, Rajon Rondo, and Daniel Oturu to the Memphis Grizzlies for Eric Bledsoe. Now, Eric Bledsoe was initially drafted by, I guess he was drafted by OKC, which was then traded on draft night to the Clippers. So, comes back to the Clippers organization. Listen, this is a difficult trade for me to kind of look at and evaluate because for people that know me, know Pat Bev is my guy. I love Patrick Beverley. I think the DNA of the Los Angeles Clippers is Patrick Beverley. He is the embodiment of the Los Angeles Clippers in terms of, just grinding for the ball, work ethic, heart. You got, the big brother per se in the Los Angeles Lakers, Showtime Lakers. They're flashy, they're exciting, they got the purple and gold. But the Los Angeles Clippers, are that blue collar team. They're going to go to work, they're going to be in your face, they're going to work hard. And even if they lose, they're going to make you hurt to win that game. So I think Patrick Beverley literally is the embodiment of what the Los Angeles Clippers are. Rajon Rondo going over. I don't really feel a way about it. I loved the acquisition of Rajon Rondo when he first came to the Clippers last year from the Atlanta Hawks. We traded him for Lou Will. He didn't and I loved it by Ty Lue, but he didn't play every single game for the Clippers in the postseason. He didn't play every single game. He wasn't there in pivotal moments. Ty Lue put him in for certain matchups and certain situations, but he wasn't a starting point guard. And I kind of thought that that's what he was going to be when he came to the Clippers, and maybe that's my mistake for thinking that, but so I don't really feel a way about it. A veteran point guard with 2 championships, high IQ guy, a very fiery personality, kind of similar to Pat Bev, actually. A guy that you definitely love to have on your team and you don't like to play against. Love Rajon Rondo. Loved his time here in the Clippers organization. Daniel Oturu is a throwaway guy. Daniel Oturu, they literally put him in the last couple games of the season last year so they could lose those games, so they could, throw them, so they could get the proper seeding that they wanted, and it worked. So thanks, Daniel Oturu, for that. But he's kind of like a piece that I don't really think he missed much. But in my eyes, the swap is Patrick Beverley for Eric Bledsoe. Now, I'm torn whether I like the trade or not, because I think on paper, Eric Bledsoe gives you more in the regular season. I think he's going to average more points. He's a 2-time all-defensive player. He's going to get more points in the regular season. Probably more points than Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo combined. But the issue for me with Bledsoe comes to the playoffs. I think not last year because he was with the Pelicans, but the year prior when he was with the Bucks in the bubble, he averaged 29% from the field and I think 17% from 3. That's atrocious. He didn't play like that in the regular season, but he played like that in the playoffs. He played like that in the bubble. And you could say that it was just the bubble. A lot of players were off in the bubble, but he has a history of just not performing in the playoffs and just not showing up and choking. And that was a major reason why they got rid of him in Milwaukee. And look what happened. They ended up winning a chip. So I think it worked out for them. I like Eric Bledsoe. I think they made this trade on or for a couple different reasons. Number one, Kawhi Leonard is out. People are saying until I've heard from anywhere between January and April. But he's out for a while off of his partial torn ACL. I don't think he comes. I know surgery recovery was, it says 4 to 6 months, which would push it, I think, to like December. I think he's going to take his time. Never hurts to take your time. I think knowing Kawhi's history and, knowing the load management, he probably takes his time. I would figure late February, early March, he comes back, just so you can get ready and, be ready for the playoffs. But who's to say the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard don't just say, hey, take the year off. We'll see where we are at mid-April, end of April in terms of the playoffs, and then adjust from there. I don't think the expectation is that they're going to be a top 4 seed in the West. I would highly doubt it that they're a top 4 seed in the West. I would honestly think that they're probably one of those play-in teams. And then it's an evaluation of should Kawhi come in. Why I mention this is Bledsoe can perform in the regular season. He can put up points in the regular season. Again, like I mentioned, not so hot in the playoffs. So if he can average, I think one year he averaged 21 points. I think with the Suns, he averaged like 21.7 points a game. If he can give you like 18 points, 19 points a game, like average, that's not bad. And that's going to allow you to still be competitive. That's going to give you some more scoring, along with, I think, Reggie Jackson. Bringing him back was massive. He's going to give you points. Terrence Mann, I think, is going to take a step up. You got Serge Ibaka back and healthy. He obviously didn't play down the stretch. And I think he played like 2 games in the playoffs. He was too injured. That'll allow you to still be competitive and make up for those points that Kawhi would have scored. That's where I think he comes back for the playoffs, takes that load off of Eric Bledsoe, because it's like, hey, bro, we know you don't perform well in the playoffs. Just be a playmaking facilitator. That'd be perfect for us. You can get that scoring out of Terrence Mann. You can get that scoring out of Reggie Jackson, Serge Ibaka, all these guys, Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum. You can get that scoring out of all those guys if Kawhi comes back and you allow Bledsoe to strictly focus on being a solid perimeter defender and being a facilitating playmaker. That works. So I'm fine with that, the trade that way. My second train of thought is why they made this trade was, I believe with this trade, it frees them up. And again, I'll talk about the Kawhi Leonard signing, because this goes hand in hand. But I think with this trade, it gives them the flexibility to do something next season in free agency. In terms of they can go a bit deeper into luxury tax. Who is that player? I don't know. Is it a trade? Probably not to get that player. It could be, but it will likely be a signing. I think with this trade, they were thinking about next year. I think the brass of the Clippers organization kind of looked at the writing on the wall and said, okay, Kawhi may or may not play this season. So let's make every single adjustment, let's make every single move that we make from now on be to prepare us for the 2022 season. So I think their mindset is they're going to create a big 3 for 2022, which I'm down for. I like that. Especially now that you see, we had a couple years where it was duos in the league, but now you're starting to see a couple teams start to ramp up, go for some big 3s, most notably, obviously, the Nets and the Lakers. I think the Clippers are trying to make that play for that next year. And that trade allows them to do that. My other, and I think final train of thought with this trade, which is the unfortunate part, because again, like I mentioned, I'm a Pat Bev guy. I think some things happened in the playoffs, and once the Clippers got eliminated, that the front office didn't jive with. I think the first thing, when it comes to Rondo, there was the incident where I think I can't remember, well, they must have been playing against the Jazz, because he obviously wasn't playing against the Suns. But I think Rondo had made a play to pass the ball to Kawhi in some dying seconds for a big shot that would have won them the game. And Kawhi, just didn't read the play well, I guess, and took a terrible shot. And Rajon Rondo gave him like this death stare, like he was staring into his soul, being like, what the hell are you doing? Why would you do that? Look for a different option, or create an opportunity for yourself. Just like in marriage, happy wife, happy life, you need to make sure that your superstars are happy. And if Kawhi and Paul George aren't happy, if there's a situation that kind of ruffled their feathers, i.e. someone giving them a death stare and telling them, what the fuck are you doing? Make a better play, might not jive so well with them. I don't think Kawhi has tough skin, to be honest with you. I don't think he has thick skin. Not as thin as Kevin Durant's, but I don't think he's got thick skin. So I think that was possibly that, and in part with, I think he and Ty Lue might have butt heads a little bit. Rajon trying to coach on the bench, and Ty Lue, infamously being known to be a coach that doesn't care. He'll stand up to players, i.e. the championship win in Cleveland. He stood up to LeBron. If you're going to stand up to LeBron, I think you'll stand up to Rajon Rondo. I don't think you're scared of Rajon Rondo. So I think that maybe rubbed him the wrong way as well. And with Pat Bev at the end of the Suns series, the absolute mental lapse that he had to go and shove Chris Paul. I think this was like in the dying minutes or seconds of the final game. And he just shoved him, and it was stupid. It was a play that you didn't need to do. Not even a play. It was just something that you didn't need to do. It was a stupid decision. He let his emotions get the best of him, and I honestly think that ended up costing him a spot with the Clippers. I think Jerry West, Lawrence Frank, Ty Lue, maybe even Steve Ballmer saw that and said, no, love you, Pat. Longest tenured Clipper at that time. Love you, Pat, but we don't want to be known for that. That's not something that we want to, hang our hat on and have people remember us by. So I think that costs Pat Bev a spot with the Clippers, which is unfortunate. Because again, he's my favorite player, and a lot of people don't get it when I say Patrick Beverley is one of my favorite players in the league. He was definitely in this roster with Kawhi and PG and these guys on there. Easily, Patrick Beverley was my favorite player. Easily, without a doubt. And even still in the league, he's still one of my favorite players. And I understand people don't get that, and people troll me for that. But the story of Patrick Beverley is, I don't want to say something like no other, because I'm sure a lot of athletes have maybe not a similar story, but a story of rags to riches, a story of they've faced some adversity and they've come from it. But what made me really appreciate and like Patrick Beverley was ESPN, I think it was, did a 30 for 30 or a small segment on him and his upbringing and how he got his road, his journey to the league. Pat Bev was a stud. Like, he comes from Chicago, south side of Chicago, I think, or west side of Chicago. And Chicago is not like it's not known to be a really friendly place. If you're not in the right spots, it's not known to be a really friendly place. You can get into a lot of bad situations there, and not a lot of people have your best interest in Chicago. So Pat Bev grew up in Chicago, and obviously played basketball in high school there, and he was a stud. He was a stud in basketball, and I remember they were talking about it in this article about guys would show up, like other like gang members or whoever they were would show up to Pat Bev's games and would be talking about like if he scores over 30, like we're gonna knock his knees out and shit like that, like just stupid sketchy stuff. And that's a terrible environment to grow up in. But anyways, Pat Bev played so well that he ended up getting an offer to Arkansas. I can't remember what happened after that, but eventually he had to come home. Something just didn't work out at the University of Arkansas. Well, maybe he just wasn't getting the time or whatever, but came back to Chicago, and, had a kid and had to take care of his family, and he turned to, selling drugs. And the moment that changed Pat Bev's life and that turned everything around was he was out with his cousin, hanging out around the neighborhood, and Pat said he was going to go home. He was leaving the area. So he asked his cousin if he wants to come with him, and his cousin was like, "Nah, man, I'm going to stay here for a bit." Pat said, "Okay, no worries, like do your thing." Like 10 minutes later, something like that, Pat Bev's cousin gets involved in a shootout. I don't know if he was directly involved with it or just got caught in the crossfires, but wrong place, wrong time, needless to say. And I think for anybody, but for Pat Bev in that situation, it was kind of a waking up moment, as to say, like, oh shit, like that could have been me. I need to make better choices in my life because that could have been me. If I didn't leave, when I did, I could have been caught in that scenario. If he left and I stayed, I could have been caught in that scenario. So, as luck would have it, as fate would have it, 2 days later, he gets a call from, I think it was either Slovenia or some, European country offering him a contract. But he would have to pay his way there, and take care of himself there. So he said, okay, I'm down. So again, he moves overseas, and he is playing hard, trying to earn money, obviously, but also get a little bit of recognition so the NBA can see him and he can eventually come home. Bounces around for a couple years, and eventually, I think it was the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets offered him a spot. And they, again, same thing. They said, you're gonna got to find your way here. $7,000, I think Pat Bev said he had in his pocket. Made his way over to Houston, got signed by Houston, grinded, and eventually, he was a part of that trade that sent Chris Paul from the Los Angeles Clippers to the Houston Rockets. Patrick Beverley, in every single sense of the word, is a dog. And, I've got buddies that say that he is the human version of a black Air Force shoe. And maybe every guy with a dog mentality has a little bit of black Air Force shoe in them. But one thing that Patrick Beverley will never cheat you for is effort. Never been the best shooter. He can put up shots. He was hitting some threes in the last playoffs. Great defender. Not afraid to get in there and get a rebound. Will get in your best player's face and intimidate them. But one thing Patrick Beverley will never cheat you for is work effort, and heart. So needless to say, you know, that is why Patrick Beverley is one of my favorite players in the NBA today, in the NBA history, just because of effort, work ethic, and heart. He is 100% an underdog. He's got that dog mentality, um, and he's definitely gonna be missed. I would love if there was some way that, maybe the Memphis Grizzlies don't want him and they waive him and he comes back. That'd be awesome to the Clippers, but I also think it's a great fit for him in Memphis. I think, they've always been known to be a grit and grind organization. You go back to Zebo and Marc Gasol being there, Mike Conley. So I think it's a good fit for him there. He can teach, John Morant a couple things in terms of defense and mindset. Him and Dylan Brooks will be nasty in a backcourt. Great defensive guards that kind of get in your face. So shout out to Dylan Brooks, Canadian. But yeah, gonna miss Pat Bev for sure. Really good player, and again, underdog, dog mentality in every sense of the word. So gonna miss you, Pat Bev.